Sorry, we were on another Zoom. I go Zoom to Zoom to Zoom.
It looks like Jane may be in the attendees.
You're muted.
Jane, Orangetown land use, that she might be in the attendees.
Yes, yeah, I think that's her. Jane, is that you?
Yes. I'm not sure why I came in as a attendee though. Oh, there we see. Okay, join as panelist. There it is. Good. Okay, bye.
Looks like we might have a quorum. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from February 16th.
I make a motion?
I'll second it. Oh, I'll let Jane can do the next one.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, that was easy. So next up is we circulated a draft of the transportation chapter yesterday, and I have my colleague Elaine Dew on the line, and she's going to walk us through the various recommendations that we included. And then we have a couple items that we'd like to discuss about whether or not you want added.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute. Good morning, everyone. So this is our transportation chapter for the comp plan. I'm just going to run through it briefly, discussing what sections we have in here and briefly going through the goals. So first we go through the existing conditions, including the roadways throughout the town, all the major highways, and the state roads. Here's a great map that we produced. All the state roads and major roadways that are state-owned, of course. And please stop me at any point if anyone has any questions. And then we go through the collector roads, which are the smaller roads that do carry high volumes. A lot of them are either town, local, county, or state jurisdiction. We do discuss some of the concerns of the citizens here that we heard from the public outreach, but we go through a lot of the roadways, and then we move into what the bike infrastructure looks like. A lot of these are the on-road bike routes and multi-use paths. So it includes some of the trails, including the greenway trails. And this is another great map that we produced. It includes the greenway trails in green, the New York State bike route in orange, and the Cuomo Bridge. Pains me to call it that sometimes, but the Cuomo Bridge multi-use path in blue. Ashley, do you want me to slow down, or is this a good pace?
I think this is fine. And if anyone has any questions, just please interrupt.
Yeah, great. So we go through each of these elements in detail in terms of where they connect, what they connect Orangetown to, what they serve, and the communities that they pass through. If you read through the roadway section, it discusses a lot of that as well. So this is still under existing conditions where we talk about how all of these transportation infrastructure connect to other pieces and other regions, other areas. Next, we move into pedestrian infrastructure, which, while shorter, we discussed that pedestrians do use the multi-use paths and also sidewalks primarily within downtown locations, connecting, although they don't connect villages and hamlets, they do serve immediate destinations within the downtown areas. We then go into the planned transportation improvements, which include improvements by the town, county, and state. Some of these are, I believe, I don't believe there are any town ones here actually, but just county and state. And a lot of these are roadway improvements by New York State DOT, including repaving, a traffic signal replacement at Route 9W and Oak Tree Road. These are just what we found through the New York State DOT website in searching through their local projects. And of course, the Palisades Interstate Parkway Bridge rehabilitation, which I believe has been discussed pretty thoroughly. And finally, we go through, I'm not sure if there's a penultimate one, but we go through the public transportation network, which we know includes an extensive bus network that connects Orangetown to New Jersey, New York City, other parts of Rockland County, surrounding towns, and Westchester County. And we also have the Pearl River Metro North Station, all the bus routes, all the park and ride lots. And here we go through it more in detail in terms of where each service serves between Orangetown and other locations, including both the rail and bus options. And in terms of the park and ride lots, we discuss where the park and ride lots are located and what transit services they serve. In terms of parking, this is another brief discussion in terms of referring back to the park and ride lots, but also talking about on-street parking within the town, including the downtown areas, and talking about a restriction of on-street parking overnight in the winter, of course, for plowing. So that is the end of existing conditions. But after that, we go into our goals and objectives, which build on the existing conditions, the concerns of the public that we heard, and the feedback from this group. So starting out with our first set of recommendations, we discuss what the main goals are, what the overall outlook is for active transportation in wanting to enhance the existing routes and build new bike routes, new multi-use paths to better serve the demand of residents and tourists. Of course, active transportation was a very big topic when we discussed it with the public. A lot of people had big opinions on bike lanes, on sidewalks, and it was a big discussion in our groups. Next, I'm seeing that my internet connection is unstable. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great, okay. Next, we go into traffic management, which is a bigger, I want to call this a bigger bucket. It includes everything from enforcement to operations to the traffic signals and complete streets and traffic calming. This has anything to do with traffic operations and anything on street. So traffic management will include improvements such as better coordination with DOT to improve our traffic signal network, to better consolidate driveways along the major state routes, because that was another concern we heard, and implementing complete streets and traffic calming throughout the town. And in parking, we also heard some feedback that parking can be pretty limited downtown, including South Nyack and South Nyack. So we were looking into efforts to expand parking availability in these areas in terms of both on and off-street parking. Public transportation, we also looked into improvements to public transportation because we know it is quite limited in terms of service and Metro North cancellations of trains. I'm sure a lot of people suffered through that during the pandemic and pre-pandemic. So one of the big things we want to do is to figure out what the demand is. We want to propose a study one of our suggestions is to propose a study to determine the existing demand and also ways to improve service. And at this point, we go into the exact strategies that we discussed with the public, that were suggested by the public and refined by us for the categories we discussed before. One of the big things we heard from the residents was sidewalks and bike lanes. These are things they want, but only where there's roadway width available. So they don't want to take away roadway width to create sidewalks and bike lanes. They want to be able to create it within the space that already exists, because they don't want to remove lanes of traffic or make traffic worse. But everyone was generally agreeable that sidewalks and bike lanes were a great idea for the town where it's possible. Another big discussion topic, again, was the transportation network, the active transportation network. And a lot of people had suggestions on how to build on the existing network it's already pretty extensive, especially by the waterfront. But a lot of people had suggested connecting a lot of the existing paths further south to New Jersey, where there are proposed paths that are going further north to the New York border. Some people had very exact suggestions, such as paving the Esposito Trail, extending the Clark Trail, but those are more specific suggestions that we included in here. For complete streets was a big topic, especially when we did the virtual meeting. A lot of people had discussed complete streets as something that they wanted to see within the town. And as the Orangetown Complete Streets policy was passed in 2019, the residents want to see it applied to all the roadway improvements within Orangetown that the town is undertaking. They want to see specific complete streets projects to improve downtown and residential roadways. Another topic here was traffic calming, which ties in very well with complete streets because they do have a lot of similar strategies. So again, traffic calming complete streets in residential areas to make traffic safer, to improve pedestrian and vehicular traffic safety. Another item that was discussed was collaborating with New York State DOT on upgrading the existing traffic signals. So most of the traffic signals within the town, specifically on state roads like 303, 304, they're owned and maintained by New York State DOT. And a lot of them, as you can see here, are older. They use span wire. As you can see here, it's span wire instead of steel poles across the intersection. They also use old detection methods, and I don't want to get too into the details of the technology behind it, but there are affordable ways to upgrade the existing traffic signals by adding smart signal sensors. And this was a strategy we had discussed in our group because people were concerned about traffic delays at certain intersections. And this would be a relatively inexpensive way to make improvements at the intersections. Of course, because New York State DOT is the only entity to be able to make these improvements, we'd have to collaborate, the town would have to collaborate with New York State DOT in order to realize these improvements. Some of the residents also had concerns that there were a lot of driveways that access the state routes 303, 304, and 340. Because these driveways sometimes you see a concentration of 3 or 4 driveways or more in a span of 200 feet, which can be pretty, which increases friction along these roadways. It can lead to traffic operation issues, roadway safety issues. So one strategy was to either limit future driveways along these roadways, or actually working with private developers to consolidate existing driveways so that multiple landowners can share one driveway instead of having 5 or 6 driveways that exit onto a state road. Toward the end of our virtual conversation that we had with the residents, a lot of them had brought up concerns about trucks. And as Orangetown is seeing a lot of new industrial, a lot of new warehouse uses, there are a lot of deliveries coming in through Amazon and e-commerce. So they had a lot of concerns regarding trucks using residential roadways as cut-throughs to get between areas within Orangetown. So one of the suggestions we had come up with these residents was developing a truck route map for the town that directs trucks to use just the major roadways instead of using cut-through routes, and actually restricting trucks, adding signage that say no trucks except for local delivery on select local roadways within residential areas, so that we can further discourage trucks from using the residential roads. And another concern on top of that was a lot of these trucks end up using roadways and bridges that do have weight limits. And these weight limits are due to either age or condition of the structure that lead to decreased load carrying capacity. So one suggestion that I think a resident or two had proposed was further enforcing and improving signage for roadway and bridge weight limits. And this would, again, encourage trucks to not use roads that may be either residential or structurally sensitive and may not be able to handle the loads of these major trucks. So by doing this, there could be potentially lowered maintenance costs and having lessened loads on these roadways. I believe it was we also looked into, again, I mentioned before, increasing parking supply. This would be consistent with the Complete Streets policy for the town in adding on-street parking, because when you add on-street parking in downtown areas, you're decreasing the roadway width slightly. Again, not without removing travel lanes, without removing roadway lanes. You can narrow these lanes and add parking, just looking into the roadway geometry, of course, before doing this. But adding on-street parking would narrow wide roadways. It would act as traffic calming, and it would add additional street parking. This is envisioned specifically in areas with high parking demand, such as, again, downtown areas. In terms of public transit, we again suggested collaborating with all the major public transportation providers in the area, including Metro North, all the various bus providers, to better serve the population. Again, a lot of residents felt that there was not sufficient service within the town to connect the town to other areas for commuters. So studying the actual demand and ridership would assist in these efforts. Of course, the town shouldn't be responsible for studying the demand or ridership. It would ultimately be the transit providers, but studying ridership and demand in collaboration with the transit providers would help us better understand what the demand is, where we can propose improvements, specifically for the residents. And finally, relating to public transit again, there are opportunities to add and expand more park and ride lots near the major commuter stations, and this would really help encourage commuters to take public transportation and to make it more accessible. And there are potential locations for this at the Pearl River Metro North stations, at the new Hudson Link bus stops, and these park and ride lots at these locations would primarily be utilized during peak commuter hours and during the day. However, on weekends, again, this adds to parking within the town, but they can be utilized for visitors and for tourists and for residents who are visiting these areas. This would add to parking, and this would also improve the residents' experience in visiting downtown areas. Overall, a lot of these strategies we went through work to improve our transportation network. They work to improve safety, access to transit. But I think overall, a lot of the feedback we got was residents are very supportive of a lot of these strategies. They are very supportive of active transportation, of expanding transit, of expanding parking. And I think that is it. But we did have one question. We wanted to discuss infrastructure priorities within the town. We were wondering if the town had some sort of list of infrastructure priorities in terms of projects, a wish list of projects to be completed by the town, or any concerns, specific concerns for infrastructure. But that's up for discussion here.
So if you speak with each department head, each one of them has their own wish list. They want.
I mean, the more information we have, the better.
Absolutely. But I'm just going to say just two things that probably should have been brought to your attention before now. One of the things the town board is entertaining is doing a comprehensive parking study for the South Nyack village, quote unquote, area. As you know, it's in the, as of April 1st, they're dissolved. So we've already started receiving a lot of complaints, and they have a lot of problems with parking down there. And understandably, some people don't have driveways. And then there was this, a lot that was owned by the village that they used to let some people park in for a nominal fee that now is being sold. So rather than just try to piecemeal it together, I just, I spoke to the village board and told them this is something we need to do, and it's basically going to be charged back to the legacy cost because, we're inheriting this village that's been around for over 100 years. And when I questioned about some of the village parking regulations, they couldn't tell you why it was like that. They were just like, oh, it's always been like that. As long as we've known it's been like that. I'm like, well, that doesn't really, times change and things change. And so whatever. So that was kind of just a component. We didn't necessarily go for an RFP for it, but we are going to be asking, because I almost think it needs to be done street by street almost, really, because the streets some of them are so narrow and so windy, and then some of them are, bigger roads. So anyway, that's just something that we've already discussed, the board's on board with, when we actually started looking forward to doing that in the very near future, because people call here, they're coming to our traffic advisory board, it's overwhelming to say the least. So that's one thing. The other thing is we have been looking to put a commuter parking lot in Spark Hill. And I'm going to be telling Allison something that she doesn't even know. We were supposed to be talking about it at the Tuesday night meeting. We've decided to push it off to the following meeting to give people a chance to hear about it. Is that in your slide? Did I miss it there? I didn't see it. But anyway, to deal with some of the problems that we have in the downtown Spark Hill parking area. So this started many years ago, actually, and we got some money, I think, from the county, and it's supposed to be on Route 340, put a parking park and ride type place, basically for people catching the buses that are going on 9W. So there's a lot of people against it, but there's a lot of people that support it because they're parking in the downtown district and taking up spots for the restaurants and for the trail and whatever. So Jim Dean's going to be making a presentation about that, and then we're going to be putting it on hopefully soon after that. But that's the type of project I think we do need to look at around town where there's parking issues. I know there's parking issues in Pearl River. I know Nyack has parking issues too, but that's not our jurisdiction, so they're on their own for that. But yeah, so those are just two of the things that jumped out at me that I should have probably made you aware before you did all this good work. But anyway, I'm telling you now. So I don't know. I think Jim Dean's on here. I don't know if he has anything to add. I know when you're talking about the street lights and, the DOT, doing smart signals, I think Jim had started doing something with that, I guess, to the extent they're within our control. But when you showed me that picture in Pearl River, I was like, yeah, wow, that really doesn't look too good. Sometimes you get so used to looking at something that you don't realize how bad it looks until someone points it out to you, So So I think that's all I have on this particular issue. I mean, I like a lot of what, I like the sidewalks. I would like to see more connectivity from hamlet to hamlet and village, to villages. I don't know how feasible that is, but it's definitely something I'd like to see. So that's my comments. I don't know if anybody else has anything. Although we may get more of that, people supporting it now with the gas prices the way they are, they may be ready to start walking everywhere. So maybe we can get bike routes and walking routes now before the,
Looks like Jim just joined.
Yeah, I've been listening. I haven't been able to contribute. Sorry, I'm trying to get this screen set up. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you, Jim.
Yeah, I've been following it. Yeah, we've had pretty extensive, in the process of extensive upgrade of our traffic signals. We have 31 signals. When we take over South Nyack, I think we're going to gain 7 more. But the town has invested over 1.2 million in upgrading the existing signals. We're working on 9 of them now. They all have Grid Smart, which will give us a new system for being able to identify what's going on at intersections. We will be looking into working with the state as they did in South Nyack with controls from the state for the thruway and the bridge that are interconnected with the traffic signals. It's all part of the process that we're working on. I heard Teresa explain about the proposed commuter parking in Spark Hill. Any other comments from me you want?
In terms of those, oh, sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, do you have like a priority list of paving projects within the town or other priority infrastructure improvements?
Yeah, we submit a capital plan to the town board on an annual basis. We have a 10-year pavement preservation program. Also includes some capital repairs, which we submit to the town board for approval each year.
Okay.
Are there any specific projects that you want to discuss or mention that would be priorities of your department?
Related to what?
Anything from paving to signals to bridge rehabilitation.
I'm not really sure what you're asking me. I just told you we're in a capital program upgrading our traffic signals. We're in the process of looking at a commuter lot in Spark Hill. Mm-hmm. Those are things we have on board right now.
Okay. We'll follow up with you after this call to get a copy of that list, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments on the draft chapter? Okay. So I guess, Elaine, if you could stop sharing your screen, we'll transition to the draft postcard.
Wait, I have one more comment. I apologize. Sure. We actually had a meeting, Allison and I, with representatives from Rockland County earlier in the week, and they have a lot of money for the CARES Act that they're looking to find projects in each town to kind of to support. It seemed to be towards kind of outdoorsy, things. So we raised a couple of them with them. I know I mentioned to the Olson Center, which is the property on the Hudson River in South Nyack. They are going to have some money for open space. They were actually going to leave and drive by some of the projects we talked about. But one of the things they were talking about was this shared use path that they're trying to do from, I think, Brooklyn to Albany or somewhere. That they just, were reaching out to us. They seem not to really be aware of some of the trails we already had, but it seems like that's what they want to do, kind of connect them to existing trails, recognizing they're not going to be able to go a straight line up to, was it Albany, Allison, that they said they were going on? Yeah.
Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo. Okay. Oof. Anyway, So anyway, just it's again, in light of this, the, pedestrian walkways and stuff, I thought just to mention it, that we are supposed to get back to them kind of with any other thoughts and things we came up with post our meeting with them. So that's all. And of course they have like $60 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's their, who's going, already 20 million is going to Haverstraw already. How much is, so I don't know how much money is actually going to be there when it's all said and done, but they do have money that they're looking to spread around the different towns.
So Teresa, can I ask a follow-up question on that?
Yeah.
So this is along the eastern edge, right? The Rockland County Shared Use Path, and
yes, but
it's part of the Empire State Trail.
Yes, I think that's what they're talking about, but they seem to recognize they're not going to be able to go. Like we joked, we said, the people in Palisades and up in, what are you going to put it in their backyards or whatever like that. So they seem to kind of acknowledge they might have to connect. I don't know, she didn't have a real good grasp on it, but she just talked about this project and that, if we had thoughts on it, so I just kind of pointed her to the Esposito Trail and our rail trail, because it does go, it's not on the water, but it's not that far from the water, that they may have to connect through that, like down into do the Haverstraw Trail or whatever. But yeah, I mean, she just kind of wanted to let us know if we had any thoughts. And so anyway, and like I said, we raised a couple of things with them that they were going to follow up with, but she just wanted us, if we had follow up on that, to let them know.
One thing that, I want to offer here is, which would be great because I've been following the shared use path study a little bit, is that it would be great if from this path, we could actually have connections into nearby areas. So, not just the north-south, but more sort of like east-west connections. And if there might be opportunity to do that, then what we've heard, in terms of being able to bike to and from places of interest, so that it's not only this sort of linear path connecting a linear north-south path, but places of interest within Orangetown, and then get them onto this path, because this path then connects to other open space and parks and amenities. So I think that, in addition to that north-south alignment that they're looking at, it would be great to also think about how the rest of the town of Orangetown, or some of the hamlets that are close by, those paths can connect. And if part of that ARPA grant could actually fund that, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at the bike network now, the trail network, and there is an extensive, the Hudson Valley Greenway Trail is pretty extensive north and south, but the only missing portion is south of Tallman Mountain State Park. And that's again, one of the, and also in a couple of areas, but that's another connection that we can make. But in terms of the Rockland County Shared Use Path, I've also heard some information about that study, and we'll look to include that. We'll update the chapter to discuss this study by Rockland County briefly. We'll also revise the chapter to include the signals that Jim had mentioned, and also the Spark Hill Commuter Lot. And of course, we'll reach out for more information on this and where everything is located in specific locations.
If anything else on that chapter before we move on? Okay. Sachi, do you want to go over the postcard?
Sure. So I'm assuming that everybody had a chance to review the memo we sent around, but I'll share my screen just so we can take a look at it again. But before I start, I just wanted to introduce Yvonne from my office, who is going to be assisting us with this next phase of the project. Yvonne, if you want to just introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Yvonne. I am an urban designer at Mud Workshop with a background in landscape architecture and urban design. And I'm so excited to be working on this project with you and proposing public realm recommendations on open spaces and resiliency. And I really look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Yvonne. So here's the, so we were, thinking about Orangetown at our office, and, Teresa, we saw the Clarkstown example that you'd sent us, which really spoke to a very people-centric or a collaborative approach to making a plan. That logo kind of spoke to that. And what we wanted to do was try and create something that could eventually become, potentially become like a logo or a identity for the comprehensive plan of town of Orangetown. And as we were thinking about it, we tried to, visualize first, what are the celebrated things in town of Orangetown? What is it that people really celebrate? And that's what this first postcard talks of, which is, really it's scenic beauty, and everybody recognizes that. And so it's showing this it's native sort of natural vegetation, and it's white pine trees, the Tallman Mountain and the Hudson River, and we have a view of the Tappan Zee Bridge in the distance, but you see a bench in the foreground because amongst all of these amazing things, there's this just a very peaceful and quiet place. And that's what this first and a beautiful place, town of Orangetown. So that's what this first postcard design is drawing attention to. And then the second one was sort of more aspirational, where we thought that, well, where does town of Orangetown actually want to go? And while all of these amazing, while it is set in this very, in this scenic natural beauty, there is also, this sort of compact and community-oriented moments or places where town of Orangetown maybe wants to, I don't want to use the develop or grow, but where town of Orangetown exists within these pockets. And these compact scale pockets of settlements exist and are interconnected with with nature. So that's what both of these, inspiration for both of these postcards is taken from. Now, I would say that, we can choose one, or we can have both, as, and print both, depending on what you have to, what all of you think about. And please ask any questions. And I can go into things like printing and postage later, after we have a moment to think about the design.
So my thoughts, I think I was a little bit confused by the second one, not confused, but I didn't know what the little yellow buildings were.
Oh yeah.
Yellow. Like Allison said, she thinks it's a farmer's market.
It's a what?
A farmer's market? I don't know. I was a little confused. I didn't know if it was supposed to be kind of just referencing something. I don't know. So which led me to kind of like the first one better. But I like the little trail on the second one with the bike or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, between the two, I think I like the first one better. I like the bridge in the back.
And the first one is a little bit more iconic. I agree with that. The second one is, yes, Allison's right, actually. This is kind of trying to show a farmer's market or a more, sort of like a community space within one of the hamlets. That's what it's trying to show. And also the, so the buildings in the back are also kind of 2 stories and not the regular, not the majority single story family.
Right.
Could we incorporate the trail into the first one?
On the first one, that's what I thought. I don't know if it,
I think we can figure out a way to do that.
I mean, without making it too much. We don't want to be,
We don't want to be too clunky, but we can figure out a way to do that. Yeah, we can definitely figure out a way to do that. Sure. So it is the first one, I believe. Is there anybody else?
No, they're all afraid to speak against the supervisor. You won't get in trouble if you disagree with me.
Well, I I was just thinking, when you think of Orangetown, we have it right outside. It's rich in history. Is there anything that we can incorporate of, not necessarily Camp Shanks or something with the Revolutionary War, like something that there's just a lot of history here as well. Because that's when you think of Orangetown, that's kind of what I think of, but just my opinion, that's all. Now I'll mute.
I don't know. I think we're overthinking it.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so we can definitely, we'll look into that, Allison, and see if there is an opportunity without making this first option too clunky to, maybe look at maybe some architectural history or any other history that is, sort of physical and can be shown here. We'll definitely look into that, but we can definitely incorporate a bike path in Tallman Mountain. That can be done. In addition to, the design of it, so the information that's provided here is, sort of standard where people, want to come to, where people have to come to, the date, the time, and the agenda for the day. We did create a separate tiny URL for the Copland website because it was just really long and did not want to provide a barcode or a QR code because it may not be easily accessible to everyone. So we created a smaller URL to take you directly to the Orangetown Comprehensive Plan website. And then the back of the postcard, is really just showing what are the 5 topics that we are going to be talking about that day: sustainability, parks and community resources, transportation, land use and zoning, and economic development. And it's going to have the address where this is going to be mailed. So the card, is optimized for a 40-cent postage in terms of size and mailing. I believe that, it would take 40 cents. Is that right, Yvonne, for every postcard to
Yes.
be mailed?
Yes.
If you need any assistance with printing or helping us identify who should be the printer, or coordinate with your printer just in terms of like color and proofs and making sure that everything's come out the right way. I mean, it would be great for us to review a proof in any case. And we can also do that over Zoom, Allison. If you're coordinating that, you and I can just coordinate over Zoom to review the proof. And then it would be good to go. So we can incorporate these changes by the end of this week, hopefully, or by Monday, and send it over to AKRF to forward it to you.
I have a question. Is there a way to make comprehensive plan workshop stand out? It's kind of like muted on the...
Here?
Yes.
Okay. We could actually switch the font size. Jane, do you think that would be, we could make this bigger and, and have this follow? Because You're Invited was just more sort of like a fun.
Well, I kind of like that being like You're Invited, but with everything the same color, maybe, and I don't know if we're limiting colors because of cost of printing, but the 2022 Orangetown Comprehensive Public Workshop, maybe that could be red or something a bit bolder.
All caps or something like that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It just looks a little washed out.
Okay. Definitely. Let's look at what's here. Okay. So if there are any other thoughts for printing, let us know, or we can just take this and update option 1 and send it over your way.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. So next on the agenda was to set the next meeting dates. and it suggested the 30th or the 6th. And then I think we should have one more before the big public workshop and have suggested 420.
So on March 30th, we will have PRC that morning.
Okay.
So basically 4 of us will be in PRC.
Okay, so is the 6th available?
Yes, we don't have PRC that morning if that works for everybody else.
Works for me.
Is there also a conflict with PRC on the 20th, or is that one free?
Hold on, I have the schedule here.
Well, the IUC meets on the 6th.
Oh yes, the IUC.
That's at 11 o'clock. So if it ends before 11 or after 12,
Right.
It works.
If we keep it on Zoom and start at 10, would that work?
That should work. We'll just make them go first. We're gonna make Eamon and Jane talk first.
We're on too many committees. That's the problem. I think we can make that work. In fact, Eamon, we could always set it up on the big screen to save some time.
Yeah, we can make it work.
Okay.
We'll have a hard stop at 11 though, because it.
Yeah, the applicants.
Yep.
Do you do that in person or are you doing it via Zoom?
It's in person, in Greenbush Auditorium.
So sorry, what date is it? The 6th or the 20th?
That was the 6th. So we are going to do the 6th. And then I was suggesting that we also have one more before the big meeting and suggested the 20th. And I don't think we've determined if that's available yet or not.
April 20th?
Yes.
I think
I'm
that's
away.
good.
I'll be away that day. Well, that whole week.
Okay.
Bring your computer. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
That's fine. I'm going to be in Ireland though.
Jane's,
So
Jane's away. I don't want to
just-
hear it. I don't want to hear that at 3 o'clock in the morning. You got a pint in front of you. I don't want to hear anything about it.
No, I just got lucky. Baseball doesn't start till 12 today.
by 3 a.m. I won't be on my first pint. So I can't guarantee what you're going to get at that meeting.
You could make it a little spicy.
Okay. All right. So we'll do the 6th and the 20th. And between now and then, we'll be sending over more draft chapters from the other sections of the comp plan.
And I have to give you my comments that I do have. I just haven't sent them over to you.
Okay.
Some of the others.
We didn't go over it today, but we did update the land use chapter based on our conversation at the last meeting with the, we separated out the villages from our land use calculations. So that'll be in the revised draft that you get. And we're continuing to develop the zoning recommendations. The other chapters that are in development are the historic resources chapter, which should be coming shortly, as well as the economic chapter. And then also the sustainability chapter. And Sachi's team has prepared a list of questions about some of the open space connections, and that'll be circulated later this week.
Can I just bring up something that just because I was at the Association of Town, they had some classes and one of them was on, housing and things like that. And one of the things they brought up was that the New York State Building Code for affordability issues now has tiny homes. Is that right?
It does.
Homes, whatever, that they now have incorporated in the New York State Building Code. Have you seen, it's so funny. I watch that television show all the time and I'm always amazed people are living in these 400 square feet or whatever they are. I mean, they're so small. Have you seen any local municipalities incorporating that in their codes or anything?
I haven't. I've been in discussions with other municipalities about eliminating minimum dwelling unit sizes from their zoning codes and relying strictly on the New York State Building Code, so that while it's not specifically addressed as a tiny home section in your zoning, if by eliminating the minimum building code, you would essentially allow more flexibility in your housing design.
Okay. I'm still undecided about them, or if they're just a fad that's going to pass, and we're going to have these little teeny homes with nowhere to live in them. But
yeah, I mean, The other side of that is not just the tiny home issue, but it also comes up a lot with accessory apartments. There's a lot of codes have minimum sizes or maximum sizes for your accessory apartment. And if you remove that restriction, you could potentially get a, more, you'd be able to fit more units within an existing dwelling potentially.
Yeah, that's not happening in Orangetown, so we're not going to talk about that.
Okay, all right.
Not happening in Orangetown. Yeah, the whole look, New York State's probably not done. We'll probably hear from them again, but for the time being, I'm told it's off the table. But yeah, I mean, my problem with that is that you're adding to a neighborhood that already was built around certain parking. Look, we have South Nyack down there. You start adding accessory dwelling units to those houses down there, we're going to have people parked on top of each other. I don't even know what you would do with them, So parking, water, sewers, like all of those have to be looked at before the state can just say go doing it. I would think if you did something with tiny homes, it'd be kind of new, and so it'd be looked at before they did, before they started building them. But again, they talked about it in this class, and I was just really curious if any local municipalities were actually doing it, but it's very new, I understand. So maybe sometime. Okay.
Maybe some of the mobile tiny homes, Teresa, they can be fun. Just have like a campground, and then,
right.
Kids can go around.
Residents will love that. I'm proposing a mobile home park.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay. I'll let you finish then.
And then the only other meeting we wanted to discuss was having a coordination conference call. And this doesn't need to be the full group for the 428 meeting. And I think we were thinking the Monday or Tuesday before the meeting, just to go over the exercises.
Actually, Ashley, can I jump in on that? Because I didn't know we were proposing Monday or Tuesday. One of the things that I think we did the last time was the briefing for the facilitators and all of that. So it's usually fresh in everyone's mind if the briefing is done the same day. So that would be our recommendation on the day of so that all the facilitators and the CPC can be part of like moment to moment what's going on. So that's something that is we would request.
Okay, in that case, would you want to just meet early on that day, and we'll internally have our own coordination call?
Sure, like we did the last time for
that's
everybody.
Fine.
Yeah, like we did the last time, because I always find that, if we discuss this a day or two in advance, it's just not fresh in the memory.
Okay. So we'll just ask everyone from the group to get to town hall about a half an hour early then, unless you think they need 45 minutes.
Oh, so actually, if you remember the last time we had it the morning of before we got to the town hall. So the same morning at around 9 or 10 a.m., if that's available on the 28th of April. And then, everyone has the briefing document with them in case there are any other questions. I'll be available in the evening to answer those questions.
Works for me.
Okay. All right, Allison, we'll follow up with the times. Okay. So that's it for the agenda, unless anyone else has any questions or things to discuss.
I just want to confirm April 6th and the 20th, and they're both at 10 a.m.?
Yes, on Zoom.
Okay, Zoom. Okay.
Ashley, we are working on adopting a portion of South Nyack's code.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that at this time. It's kind of running parallel with this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how you were planning on dealing with their zoning. If you were going to retain their existing zoning and just include it as part of the town zoning, or
it's going to be its own chapter.
Its own chapter, okay.
We're only taking a portion of it, and Rob Magrino is on the call, who has been, assisting from the legal side of that. So we're taking their bulk, basically, and some of their definitions and their map.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, if we do nothing, their code is in effect for 2 years. So somewhere within that 2-year time frame, the town board will, move stuff over, create a new section in the Orangetown town code, and repeal the South Nyack.
Right.
We were thinking of doing it sooner, as early as April, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So we'll see. So the backdrop is, the backstop position is their code is in effect for 2 years.
Okay.
Upon dissolution.
I mean, one of the things to consider, since the town is looking at really revamping the Orangetown zoning code for all of the different issues it has, including South Nyack as part of the wholesale rewrite of the Orangetown code.
Well, if we're doing that, we can provide you with what we have so far. We have LaBerge, who is the group that assisted South Nyack with the dissolution. They're assisting in the drafting of it. It's not as you can imagine, it's not as simple as just taking it and plopping it in.
Right.
So we're trying to do that, but in its own section. But yeah, I mean, it's if the more can be a part of it, the better. Because their regulations are different. They're bulk regs. They're the tables, I should say. And use tables. Their bulk tables and use tables are actually pretty good. And ours is a little more complicated. So if we're changing that in the town, then yeah, that'll be fine to include it.
Okay. I'll take a look at those documents. All right, so I think that's all I had. If there's nothing else, we'll see everyone on the 6th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have to take a motion to close or any of this stuff, or no, we don't?
Take a motion to adjourn.
A motion to, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Jane seconded it.
All in favor?
Thank you.
I can tell Amy doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to, he didn't vote. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you too.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.